Make sure my hair looks fine. Just got out of the shower. I got an interesting topic this time. This is going to be all about comparison because I've been noticing a lot of it in myself lately. I'm going to start off by saying that CCIV, oh my God. So I transferred all my NIO to CCIV for those of you in the stock market. And it's just going down, but it's just like at this point, it doesn't really make sense of how low it is. $6.7 billion market cap currently, and it's valued at 11.4. I mean, the company itself has the SPAC itself has like $4 or $5 billion in cash. So I'm like not too worried. I had a stop loss on it. I just took the stop loss. I'm in Lucid Air long term now, just because it's like right now it just doesn't make sense. I think it's a lot of panic selling, but I'm literally watching the market right to my right. But I'm going to try not to let that distract me at all. But yeah, yesterday was pretty crazy. That was wild. And it really showed me like never panic sell, because yesterday in pre-market alone, I was down $9,000. And then the first 15 minutes, I was down 22,000 and then literally like 60,000 in crypto. So I was down like, actually no, in total, I was down like $65,000, $70,000, but I didn't sell. I was kind of just like laughing at it. I'm like, this is a crazy dip, but thank God for Jerome Powell. But yeah, something happened. I think I mentioned this in the last podcast, which it's really got me thinking. It's like there was this one townhouse in Miami, and it was perfect, guys. I'm telling you, I don't want to deal with an apartment. You guys know this. That's sardine land in fucking Miami. Don't want to deal with an apartment. I had the perfect townhouse. I kind of wish I never found that townhouse, guys. Like, I really wish I didn't, because now, like, before I found that, I was like, oh, this is a pretty nice place. Oh, that's pretty nice. I could live there. So I had all these places that I was interested in. But when I found that, and then it was taken like 2 hours before I was going to sign it, I was like, man. So now it's like every time I look at a new unit, every time I look at an apartment or a townhouse or something, I'm like, it's not as good as that one. Before it was like, okay, I could live here. Okay, maybe I could live here. That's pretty cool. Okay, I kind of like that. But now every time, literally every listing I look at, it's not as good as that townhouse. It's not as good as that townhouse. It's not as good as that townhouse. And it's just like comparison, dude. And I see that a lot. I saw that a lot of myself before, and now I see it in a lot of people nowadays. Like, that's the one thing that I really dislike about everything that's happened to me. Like, when I bought the i8, when I bought the i8 is when I really started to notice it. I talked about before, but one of my friends, they came over here and they hit me right when they got in. This is like a couple of years ago. They hit me. And I'm like, what? And they're like, I had to drive all the way over here and my AC's out. And I was like, no, I had to drive all the way over here and my windows were down the whole time. I'm like, well, why didn't you just, use your AC, because it's really hot out. They go, I don't have an i8 like you, Scott. And that bothers me. But what really bothers me is, like, it seems like anytime someone has any sort of accomplishment, whether it's a monetary accomplishment, whether it's a new car, whether it's a new apartment, and they show it to me, it is like, I'm not kidding, 95% of the time, it's followed up by, well, it's not as nice as yours, but like they'll show me their new apartment. I mean, it's not as good as yours, but like I like it. Or like they get a new car. It's like, I mean, it's not Tesla, but I mean, I really like this new car. I really do. Or like they'll get a new job and they're like, I'm not making as much as you, but it's just like the comparison literally drives me crazy, guys. Cause it's like, I think the reason people do that around me, or like I've even caught myself doing it around other people, like big stock traders, like I'll go to say and I'll remember, I'm like, I know how much I dislike me saying, it's not as big of a gain as, or people saying to me like, it's not as big as yours, but I hate that because it makes me feel like my presence alone dilutes their accomplishments, and it's crazy. CCIV is going nuts right now. This is good news. Anyway, that's something wild, because I was just telling my friend just now, it's just like, it's so weird to me that I can be looking at these high-rise apartments and these beautiful places in Miami, which 4 years ago, I would get, like, I remember going to LA and just being psyched to get like a $1,300 a month studio. And I'm like, this is perfect, because like, look at everything I'm around. Like, it's amazing. And then like, I remember I got this like little apartment with my friend Aaron, it was like $1,600 a month in Miracle Mile. Or like even the Koreatown studio, there's 5 deep of us in there. No AC. There was no AC involved. There was 5 of us in one bed. We had to sleep on the ground this whole summer, and I slept in the closet a lot of the times, and I loved it because I didn't have anything to compare it to. Like, especially compared to my house, that little studio was awesome because it was in LA. And now it's just like I've gotten to the point where it's like, okay, I've lived in really cool places. Like, in my opinion, I live in one of the best apartments in St. Louis, best units too. And that's not to gloat or anything. That's literally just the reality of it. And like when I moved to LA, I lived in an insane house. So like ever since that, it's just like every time I move it or every time I look at something, I'm comparing it to where I lived in the past. Or in this case, now that I had that opportunity to get it and I didn't, now it's like every time it's not as good as that was, not as good as that was, which is, it diminishes all the other properties I'm looking at. And that is horrible. And so I see that. I mean, I don't want to get too technical or money oriented on this podcast, but I see that a lot in people trading. You know, they'll say they make a 30% gain on $1,000, they'll make $300, and they'll kind of feel like embarrassed to like tell me or like tell like, you know, other people who are big time stock traders, because they're like, you know, I mean, it's a small win, you know, I'm happy with it, but it's just like they were super happy with it relative to their situation until they started telling other people who have bigger capital to make bigger gains, because it's honestly a percentage game. And I think it's super important for me, or just most people, to like, I really like what Jordan Peterson says. He says the only person you should compare yourself to is the person you were yesterday. I love that. But in my situation, it's just like, okay, but what if the person I was, quote unquote, yesterday was better than the person I am now, or like better than the route I'm going? I don't know. But that's so like materialistic. I love nice places so much, because like you guys know, that's all I wanted as a kid, just live in a nice place where I could actually have friends over and they wouldn't make comments, or like I wouldn't have to blindfold people coming into my house. All I wanted was that. So now it's just like I decided to extend my lease here in St. Louis for another 2 weeks, because I was just feeling like I'm going to a wedding this weekend, and I was just feeling so rushed, because when I get back from the wedding, I would have a week and a half to sign a place, and I'm like, I don't know if I want to do that. But all my friends are saying, you know, it happens for a reason. It happens for a reason. It's hard for me to find that reason, but I'm kind of like seeing the reason develop. Like, because I lost that townhouse, if I don't find a place that I'm like comfortable with in Miami, in the location that I want, I may just go to that sick ass Colorado house that I lived in last summer. I'm talked with the owner today, and just live there for the summer, because Miami's going to be like 100 degrees plus and 90% humidity. It'd be a weird time to move. I could just move to Colorado, get super fit, hike all the time, and just have a chill summer, literally mentally and environmentally, just have a chill summer. I need to stop looking at CCIV over here, because it's a long-term play. But yeah, the comparison thing is very weird. It's very weird, because it's not, I don't want to say something cringy where it's like, you know, it's only a chapter in your book, but it's literally all you should do is compare yourself to the person you were yesterday. But everything happens for a reason. So I was talking, and this could be a reason if I end up going with this. Like, I was talking to my friend Armin, and we're like, well, what if we spend our summer going to all 50 states in America? Like, we do the 48 state road trip, and then we end it by going to Alaska and Hawaii back to back. And that's how we end it. Ideally, I want to do 50 states in 50 weeks, but because it just has a ring to it. But I think if we do it, it's going to be more like 50 states in like 4 or 5 months, just so we can spend like 3 or 4 days in every state. And then that would just be like an insane twist to the route that I was going to take if I did sign this. Because I did the math, and a comfortable estimate and I would rent a car. Like, I'd milk Enterprise for all they got. They offer unlimited miles. Fuck you. I'm putting 20,000 miles on that bitch in like 3 months for only $600 a month for like a Camry. So I did the math between the hotel stay, between the food, between the hotel. I already said hotel, food, gas, and car rental. Like an overestimate is about $3,500 to $4,000 a month. I'm like, okay. In Miami, that townhouse is going to be $4,800 a month, plus like $200 or $300 I assume in utilities, so like $5,300 a month. So I'm like, okay, well actually, and then the Colorado house would be like $4,500 a month. So I'm like, I'm kind of thinking maybe I can spend my summer a different way, because I'm telling you guys, ever since COVID hit, my body has been yearning, just screaming for an adventure. And that month in Colorado was cool and everything, but I'm talking about like a serious one where, like, I talked about this on the live the other day. It's like what I want to do is what nobody's done. If one person watching this right now can name one person that they know personally to do all 50 states, drop a comment right now and be honest. I literally want to know, because I want to be the one guy that people know personally who's done all 50 states. I want to be the one guy that people know personally who's been to the hardest to get to continent in the world, Antarctica. Shout out Noah and Luca. We're going to be doing that trip soon. I want to be the one guy that people know personally that has gone to the rarest country in the world, and that's North Korea. I'm going to say it right now. I'm going to be in North Korea sometime, because they do offer tours. That's like a huge misconception. Like, oh, it's gated for all Americans or all public. No, you can take a tour in North Korea. They do offer those. Upwards of a 10-day tour, like the entire country. They'll take you around the whole country. And then some people would be like, oh, that's so sketchy. What if you end up in jail? Listen, when I'm in another country, I'm going to fully respect every rule that they have. Because people want to talk about that one American who went there on a tour and he ripped down a political poster. Are you fucking stupid? You're in North Korea and you're ripping down a poster? Your beliefs will not supersede the country's beliefs, especially in a country like North Korea. You got to be super respectful. Don't even spit your gum on the ground. I mean, in China, you can go to jail for that, I've heard. And my friend knows someone personally who went to jail for a while for going to China to like graffiti, basically. Why are you going to China to graffiti when you know that will bring you jail time? But I'm just really looking for an adventure. And so I'm thinking, like, if I do this, if it is the 50 state thing, I'm going to gain a huge, like, first of all, I'm not going to be hot as fuck all day. I'm not going to be landlocked all day. And I'm not going to be spending bands all month. Because in Florida, I decided to finance my car so I could invest it. And thank God I did, because I've turned what would have been $75,000 down the toilet, depreciating, into a finance loan. And I took what I would have spent and I've doubled it in the stock market, or I've 5x'd it in the crypto market. And so when I look at my cost of living there, it would be the $5,200 for the rent. It'd be, I think my payment on my Tesla is like $1,600. So now we're looking at $6,800. And I'll probably spend like $2,000 a month on food, or maybe $3,000 in Florida. I spent $30,000 last year and $22,000 the year before in food. I can't imagine if I'm living in Miami full time how much I need to control that, because it's like food is my weakness. Like, I love good food. Like, I have no problem with going out and spending like $350 on dinner. Like, does not bother me whatsoever. But and this brings me back to the comparison. Comparing that to 4 years ago, if I spent $350 like 3 or 4 years ago on some food, I would be bankrupt and I would just be freaked out. I would have I'd probably throw up the food afterwards and eat it again just in case. Not even just in case, just to get my value over. I might throw up twice to eat it again, because that's how much I would want to get out of that. Like, just keep it recycling. Just keep it recycling. Eat that throw up all day. Throw up stew. Like, I have a nice filet. I throw it up and now I got a filet soup, so to speak. So when I'm looking at my cost of living, so $6,800 fixed, and then with the food, probably around $8,000 with the gym membership and whatever I do. I don't have to worry about gas. $8,000 a month. That's a lot of money, guys. $8,000 a month. Even though I can afford it, like I'm trying not to have my brain develop towards a place where it wasn't like LA. When, dude, I was spending $11,000 a month on rent alone, plus like the couple $1,000s a month on food, the $300 a month on the gym, $320 on gym membership, and God knows what else. Like my fixed costs in LA, since I had this place in St. Louis too, were upwards of like probably like $13,000 a month. And again, I'm fortunate and blessed enough to actually afford that, but it's like comparing to the way I was living, my happiness level, it is better, but I know that spending all that money isn't just going to make me happy. Like whatever was making, because I forget what effect they call it, but they say no matter what situation or where you live or what you buy or anything like that, generally your happiness generally goes to a baseline. Like it'll spike up. Say you buy a new Lambo, it'll spike up, and eventually it'll go to that baseline again. You can ask anybody who's bought a car or anything. It will do that. I remember when I got my i8, and that's another thing. Like that's why I'm very confident when I say that the memory is better than the moment. Because I remember there was like a couple days 2 summers ago when I was like on top of the world. I was making so much money. Less than I am now, but still more money than I ever thought. I had my i8, I had my apartment, I had a bunch of friends, but I still caught myself being miserable a bunch of times. And that's one thing I hope to be different from most people. I wanted to say this at the start, but I'll say this now. It's like, guys, I will never, ever be that guy who pretends like he knows all the answers. See, there's a big difference between, pretending that you're perfect. And where was I going to take that? There's basically what I'm saying is like there's a big difference between I had it perfectly the other day. I was because there's a lot of people online who like put themselves out there as if they don't have any imperfections, as if they don't have any flaws, and they're here to instruct everybody about how to be like them. I will admit most of my flaws to you guys because, again, this is kind of like me getting what my inner thoughts are out to you, and it seems like some of you are having the benefits. Like this podcast has 5x since I started. When I started this podcast, I was only getting like 300 or 400 views per solo podcast. And now look, I mean, I'm breaking 2,000 or 3,000 views every single solo podcast. I never thought I'd be able to just sit here and talk. But what's crazy is I know that a year from now, I'm going to be like, I remember like a year into my podcast, I was only getting like a couple thousand views. And now look, so it's just like the comparativeness. And that's why, getting back to my point, the reason the memory is always better than the moment, and why the memory can be a tricky little bastard, is because it's kind of like trying to draw you back. Like, it's weird. Your body wants to be comfortable. Your mind wants to be comfortable. It does not want to seek discomfort. We're in after hours, CCIV. Anything could happen. It does not want to seek discomfort whatsoever, but placing it in discomfort is how you really progress. And it's just because our brain is wired back in like the Stone Age, you know, whenever we're in like a cave or something and we're warm, it was like our brain signaling like, this is where we're supposed to be. This is nice. This is perfect. So when we try and get away from that, it tries to draw us back. I always say how it's so ironic that when I was living at my grandma's after I came back from LA for like the third time, I was like, fuck, it's like, okay, I can't wait to get to my new apartment. I can't wait to get my own place. Then I got my own place, and I'm just thinking about, man, those days at my grandma's were awesome. Like just living there is like so carefree. And like, I was like, you know, 212 is nice. And I've talked about this on the Colorado path, so I'm not going to reframe, but I mean, even in LA, when I was living in that house, that beautiful house, like I accomplished my dream. I remember being on the phone with my friend Ben, and I'm like, Ben, I don't know what's wrong with me. Like something's telling me I need to get back to St. Louis. Like I'm just uncomfortable here. Like I'm feeling weird. And it was the comparison. because I was comparing where I am right now with where I was before. But where I was before was gone. It's gone. But the comfortability of being surrounded by my friends and family here were, my friends here, they don't necessarily are business people. They're not going after, not always trying to start businesses and stuff. And like in my brain originally, I was like, that's like, that's a bad thing. They're not pushing themselves harder, But what I realized recently is it's like, but not one is concerned about what celebrity was at what party. Not one is concerned about who has the better car. Not one is concerned about who has the better place, who has more money, who's making more cash. Not one is concerned about that. And then when I go to a place like LA or Miami, it's like, everybody's just trying to one-up each other. Everybody's just trying to one-up themselves, which is great. But it's like two different worlds. One's more chill, more relaxed, and it could arguably be more mentally healthy. One is just like, and that's why I love the song, what is it? Love Yours by J. Cole. He's like basically saying there's always going to be someone with a whip better than the one you got. There's always going to be someone rocking clothes fresher than the ones you rock. And he's like, there's always going to be a bigger house when you're out there on the tour or something, but you're never going to be happy till you love yours. I butchered that so bad. But what I'm saying is like, even moving into that townhouse, because now like it's like a missed opportunity. Obviously I'd like it more. Even moving into that townhouse, I feel like I would have been like, this is nice, but like I'm looking at these multi-million-dollar mansions. Like shout out my friend Junior. You guys saw in that podcast with him what kind of house he's rocking with. I'm like, yeah, this apartment or this townhouse is nice, but look at that house. Like he's got his own private beachfront and everything. It's like perfect. And then like I'll watch Junior's stories, and he'll be like, 20. I just saw he posted this story like 2022 or something, and it was like this huge mansion on the lake, like tens of millions of dollars. His is like, I don't know. I think he said like between like 3 or 7 million. I don't know, something like that. But even he's like looking at other places, so it's just like the comparison to compare. You're never gonna be happy. Like, and then you also have to figure out, and I also need to figure out, when I say this, I do need to figure out why it is I'm always comparing. And I wish I had all the answers, but that brings me back to the main point of this podcast. It's like, and I'm glad I'm saying this because these are my thoughts out loud, remember? And I discover a lot about myself when I'm like, I basically force myself to talk about this stuff. Yeah. Sorry if this is like jumbled. I'm just trying to figure out why is it not only I, but so many compare themselves to each other. And that's why I could get uncomfortable in LA, is because it was just like, go watch the Elixir video for those of you who haven't. It's called How to Be Rich or something, Elixir. That was the video we did. And we would be like literally watching people in Beverly Hills. Like that was a cringy video in the sense of like people are like Elixir would go up to someone and be like, do you have AirPod Pros? You must be broke then. And the guy would be like, no. He's like, oh, you must be broke then. And he's like, do you have a bust down AP? And it's just like, oh my God, like this guy's actually serious about this. This guy's actually serious about one-upping this kid. And comparison will be the death of any inhibition or anything you're going after. Comparison can be the death. You should only compare yourself to the person you were before. I hope that makes sense. Let's go, CCIV. CCIV is killing it after hours. Let's fucking go. But that's where I am, guys. And that's why I think like a 50-state road trip would be amazing, because, damn, this is actually a crazy thought. For me to do 50 states, I wouldn't be comparing myself to anybody. that I know. I don't know anyone who's been to all 50 states. And maybe that's why I want to go to Antarctica and North Korea, because those are things I'm doing where I can't compare it to anybody else. And maybe the reason I don't like apartments is because if I'm in an apartment, I just look around and I can see all the apartments I can compare myself to. Like, oh, look, there's David Beckham's $35 million penthouse. And here I am in this $5,000 a month apartment. Not comparing it to the person I was before, where I was living in a studio with 5 people and it was like a $1,200 studio in the ghetto. It's just interesting how the brain works sometimes. It really is. It really is. And I guess I'll keep you guys updated with that. So I would bring my friend Armin. He would do the filming. I'd pay for everything of his. And still, paying for all of Armin's stuff and paying for all my stuff would still be less than just living in Miami. And like, my reasons for moving to Miami, I've told you guys this before, because I'll just be honest with everybody. It's like, I'm not the most thrilled about moving to Miami. I've never visited Miami and be like, oh, I want to live here. I visited Miami and I'll just be like, I want to get to LA. I can't wait to get to LA. I like Miami. Do not get it confused. I like Miami and I love Miami a lot. But when it comes to living there, I got to follow the heart. And I was talking about this on the last one. Speaking of which, some of you might have been, a lot of you guys have DM'd me about the front desk lady. Doesn't seem like they're firing her, unfortunately. And an update on that was when I talked to them, they said that they've actually seen her do that to other residents. And then ironically, yesterday morning, I went to the roof and I saw one of the guys I know here. And I told him the situation. I'm like, I finally had to report this lady. Like, she would not stop asking me to buy her stuff. And he's like, oh, is it the weekday one? Like in the middle? I'm like, yeah. And he's like, dude, she does the same thing for me. Like the other day I got a package and she's like, oh yeah, what'd you get? And I was like, oh, I just got some like weatherproof gloves where like it doesn't freeze your hands. And he said that she said, oh, so when are you going to buy me one? And it's just like, okay, I've never seen a situation where I've never seen in my whole life a situation where someone deserved to be fired more so than that. This is a funny story, guys, just because I'm going to pull this up and I'm going to screen record this just because this is so funny. Let me pull this up really quick. So one person did get fired here before, and it was for the funny. Oh, my mic cut out for a second. One person did get fired here before, and it was for the funniest reason. So if you're watching this on Spotify, just take note of where you are, because this is literally one of the funniest things I've ever seen. I'm going to pull it up right now. So we had this was my favorite employee by far in the entire building. Like, I talked to this guy every day. He worked here for like 2 years. Where is it? Worked here for like 2 years. And, oh, fuck. I'm not finding it right now. I'm going to find it, don't worry. So let me explain the situation while I find it. Okay, found it. So this guy worked here for 2 years, guys. And I want to pause it just so I can get the screen recording right. Okay, I'm going to turn that down. So this guy worked here for 2 years. See him every day. Super, super, super nice guy. Like, he, even like when I was launching my clothing company, he's like, man, anytime you launch that, just let me know. I'll buy a bunch, because like I really like that design a lot. Like, he was very supportive. And then, guys, literally out of nowhere, like nobody expected this. This dude comes in on, he only works on the weekdays. All of a sudden, he shows up on a Sunday out of nowhere with like 15, 20 people. And apparently it was to shoot this music video for his cousin. Oh my God. And my friend Jeremy in the building took a video clip of what went down on the roof. And I'm going to pause this screen recording and I'm going to start a new one. And I'm going to put it up on the screen right now. But guys, this is what someone else got fired for. But what this lady's doing, apparently she's not going to get fired for. So check this out. So anyone who's watching, oh my God. anyone who's just listening, oh my God. Anyone who's just listening to that, basically, I'll describe what it was. So I would say it was about, I'm seeing like 10 women in bathing suits straight twerking for a music video while they were just blasting music. And they're just going hard. The guy has like a professional camera equipment. And like they said that the like 3 different residents called within 5 minutes of it starting. Like, what the fuck is going on the roof right now? Like, what the fuck is this? And he unfortunately got fired immediately. And the residents were so pissed that they started like one of those things you sign to get him back. And like I talked to the property managers, and they're like, yeah. When he was asked about it, they said that I gave him permission. I did not give him permission at all for them to do that. And that's probably one of the most legendary things to ever happen in this apartment building that ended in a firing. But yeah, that's the situation right there. But getting back to the point of this podcast, what I really want people to get out of this, as well as myself, because again, I'm never going to put myself on a pedestal where I'm thinking that I know all the answers and I'm going to pretend like I don't have any flaws, or that I'm perfect, or that I know everything. I'm not any of those. And yeah. So that's what I have to say about that. It's like, unfortunate that townhouse ruined my perception on everything, because you guys already know the situation I've explained. I don't want to just keep repeating myself right now. But that's why I just want people to really get any benefit out of this. It's that, like, not only is comparing yourself to somebody, it can hinder your own thinking, but it can hinder that, because I'll be honest, I don't want to really be around people who are constantly saying, it's not as good as yours, but Scott, maybe some people get off to that. Like, they want people to acknowledge that they're richer, they're not as rich as you, or they don't have as nice a house. I do not. I think that puts me in it just makes me feel just like itchy and awkward and everything. And comparisons, what does they say? No, that's assumptions. Assumptions make an ass out of you and I. I'm going to go ahead and answer some of these questions, just because, like, sometimes I'll just push it to an hour, but I feel like I'm kind of repeating myself a little bit. I hope I'm not. I hope you guys are picking up what I'm putting down, essentially. So let me get into some of these questions. Again, you guys, you can ask me anytime you want, advice from Scott@gmail.com, and I'll just give my best opinion on the situation that you're asking about. Okay, so I have never read any of these, but this one sounds interesting. Hey Scott, I have these strange split-second flashes in my head which contain information about what I should do next, instructions on how to do a thing I'm about to do a specific way. And I've been having these for the past month very frequently, and the stranger thing is, if I don't follow the instructions in the flashes, something bad always happens to me the next day. Yes, sir. I've tested this theory out, and it's a 90% rate, and something bad happens to me every time I don't follow the flashes. Also, if I do follow the flashes, something good happens. So, man, basically what that is that's your intuition. And I think the intuition / soul, me and Junior talked about this, is directly plugged into your subconscious. And the subconscious in itself, this is like a fact, it collects all data. Like, even data you don't consciously know that you're taking in, it collects it all. And I think whether it's your soul, whether it's the accumulation of data, I think it's a combination of everything. I think it's literally the creator of the universe signaling you the way you should go through your subconscious, which is why we have a subconscious, in my opinion. And it's like a muscle. Shout out Ben, because I need to have Ben on the podcast for sure, because he's taught me a lot. He's like, the intuition is like your bicep. If you don't work out that bicep, man, it's never going to get bigger. But the more you work out that bicep, the more you work out that intuition, the stronger it gets. So in your situation, it seems like it's getting stronger and stronger. And the fact that it's happening so much means you are at a pivotal moment in your life. Like something big is going to happen soon, but it's not going to happen unless you follow these flashes. And how many of you out there have not followed your intuition and it's led to something good? Maybe sometimes, but most of the time, in my personal experience, me not following my intuition generally has led to something bad. And I was like, oh, I knew it. Like, for example, with the CCIV, my head is saying, okay, Scott, you're down a couple grand on CCIV. Maybe you should pull out. So I put a stop loss on. And then I was like, my intuition is saying that, like, and also the facts, like I'm not trading based, also intuition, but the facts of like the evaluation, this is an undervalued stock right now. And I think since it's a SPAC, a lot of retail investors are panic selling. But that's besides the point. There's way more important things than trading stocks. And it seems like you are in a position, sorry to get back to you so long. This is actually a question from November, but I'm slowly getting back to it because I didn't answer some of these questions sometimes. So that's what I have to say about that. Those flashes are your intuition / subconscious telling you to do something, and you better believe it. And if you stop believing it and only use your head, it's that intuition, that those flashes are going to get weaker and weaker and then become non-existent. And then you're going to become a purely logical thinker, which logical thinking is never going to get you ahead in life. Like the logical way to live life is to get a secure job, make only very secure conservative investments, and then retire. But it's just like, if that's the life you want to live, there you go. But if you want something more, you have to take risks. And if your logical brain isn't going to want you to take any risks. Okay, this one's interesting. It's a little long, but we got, hi Scott, I'm 17 years old from London, and ever since December, I've been trading Forex. June this year, my life changed. I made $40,000 within the span of 2 weeks. Oh my God, he's 17. And I've been making a consistent $10,000 a month ever since. So the problem that I face is that I have been seeing a lot of success with a short amount of time. I can relate to that for sure. I know that sounds very unusual, but although my plan ever since I started my journey was to make a lot of money, I didn't think that would happen as quickly as it did. No one ever does. I'm struggling now in terms of vision and long-term goals because although I've made all this money, I still live in my mom's basement, and the most expensive thing I own is a phone. Good for you. And that's not ironic, literally good for you. I don't know what to do as I feel myself changing and becoming more arrogant, and I really don't want that to be the case as I am a selfless being. So I'm looking for some advice on how to deal with a lot of success for the first time within a short period of time. Yeah. Okay. I think I can really speak on this properly because the same thing happened to me. I think it is so ironic that when I had like 20 times less money than I have right now, or 20 times less net worth than I have right now, literally 20 times, that's when I was buying the most diamonds. That's when I was buying the most Gucci, Louis Vuitton, Gucci, Givenchy, Balenciaga, all of this, shoes out the ass, Off-White, all of this. That was horrible because, you know why? Because I had that money available to me. Now I keep a very small cash balance and all my money's in investments. So for example, the reason that's like a super beneficial thing that I would recommend you doing is because if you don't have a large cash balance, you're not going to be tempted to blow it on stupid shit. I.e., back in mid-January, I placed an order for a custom-made, like, I think it was like a $7,500 diamond necklace. And I'm like looking at my account, my bank account, even though I have a really good amount of money in all my investments, like diversified across all of it, and my bank account, I'm like, oh, this would be a huge hit to my bank account in terms of percentages of cash available on hand. And so I actually canceled the order because I'm like, I don't want to spend it on, I don't want this. And then like I couldn't, like, maybe I wouldn't have the money to put forth on an investment coming up, or I wouldn't have the money to put forth on my down payment for a lease or even a house if I choose to buy one. So I didn't buy it. And so for someone like you, assuming that you have about $60,000, $70,000 in cash in your bank account, I would put that in something that's going to grow. I mean, dude, Acorns, just put it in an Acorns account if you're worried about it, because that way that cash won't be accessible to you. Like, you don't understand how important that was. If I would have learned that back in the day, like when I talked about this on the podcast, my first podcast with Luca, if I took that $80,000 cash that I spent on my i8 and put it in Tesla at the time, it'd be worth over $1 million right now. But I put it in i8. If I would have put that money in Tesla, maybe I wouldn't even bought the i8, or I would have bought the i8 and I would have had to finance because I wouldn't have had all the cash just laying around to spend on the i8. So when you have a large cash balance, especially at your age, you're going to be so prone to just spending that on stupid shit. And right now you're in an interesting position because you're still in your mom's basement and all you own is really a phone. If you're asking me, I would put like at least 50%, maybe 60, 70% into investments, secure investments if you so choose to, or like honestly, I mean fucking FRX or Rolls Royce. But hey, you didn't hear that from me. I would not recommend you buying those stocks. Just putting that out there. That's just what I've bought recently, and they're still, in my opinion, very undervalued. I'm not a financial advisor, and I don't recommend anyone buying those stocks, just to be clear. But what I'm saying is, like, also don't let it dilute and this is a perfect question to end on because it's going back to the whole theme of this whole podcast and the comparison. Don't let the amount of money you're making right now dilute your perception on money, because the other day when FRX went crazy, dude, I made like $20,000 that day. And I was so focused I was so focused on this win that I let my options slip to a loss of $1,500. That's one of the biggest losses I've taken in options, because I was like, oh, I mean, I made $20,000 over here. No, you cannot think like that. So I know I understand where you're coming from, because when you made that $40,000 that month, now you went from barely making any money to $40,000. Now when you only make $10,000 a month, I know in your head you're like, I mean, $10,000 is cool, but it's the same thing. And dude, I'm glad you asked that question. Perfect way to end it. It's just like when I bought the i8, I'm like, okay, it's cool. But like, I remember when I brought it home, when I brought that home the first time, my friend was like insane, because you don't see that too much around these parts. Like, my friend was freaked out. And I remember telling them like, yeah, that's nice, but I can't but wait till you see my next car. And I'm like, that's such damaging thinking, because I can't even be happy for myself. Like, don't get me wrong, I was happy to buy it, but I was already thinking about the next. I was already living in the future. I wasn't even living in the moment, much less living in the memory. But now a lot of times I'm living in that memory, because compare myself to right now, it's like, as your memory progresses, you forget all the things that you were going through in your head or whatever, and it just seems better. Like, I remember being a lot of times miserable driving the i8 around because I was just so confused. And even though I was making tons of money, I was just like, man, the simpler times. And I was just thinking about, like, even in college, it's like all the simpler times. But the memory will never be as good as the moment. So now, instead of like, say you only make like $3,000 this month, the only thing you should be comparing that to is the person you were before. And at your age, I know there are some months you weren't making any money or just only losing money. Just think about that next time that you're making, even if you had a bad, quote unquote, bad month and you only made like $2,000. Think about how crazy that $2,000 would have been. And that's how I'm thinking. I don't know, I'm trying to approach this Florida thing, because like, I'm looking at badass like apartments and high rises, and I'm not feeling it. But like, if I could have only dreamt to live in those places 4 years ago, but instead I'm comparing it to other things, not the person I was. So I'm going to end it right there. I know I kind of rambled there for a second. I hope you guys got value out of this. I'm just in a confused state because I really don't know where I'm going to go. And also, I may even get a house with my friend Human. So that's why this lease extension is great, because now I can sell a lot of things that I really don't want anymore. I have time for that. I got time to really look at properties. I got more time to think, and I got more time to decide on what is it I really want for myself and out of the summer, and why is it that I'm really moving to Miami, which I already know the reason, because everyone's moving there, and being surrounded by all the people that I love is pretty amazing. Like, I got so many good friends out there who are successful and push each other. That's super important. But even if your friends don't do that, you can't really, because there's two very different benefits to those two very types of different friends. Like, I feel like some live in the moment, and some live in the future, and some live in the past. But the only thing you can do is just enjoy where you are right now, knowing that someday in the future, you're going to look back on, even if you're fucking super depressed right now, or even if you're on top of the world right now, either way, you're going to look back on this moment, and it's going to be better than it is right now. So you better make it as good as possible and enjoy it. So I hope you guys like this podcast. Definitely rambled there for a second. Sometimes it's hard getting my thoughts out. Like I said, I'm in a confused state. So sometimes my thoughts can be confusing, but that is the end of this one. Thank you guys so much for watching. Peace, 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 peace.